So, here's one for you. I am just after dropping up a timetable to my little baby brother Aidan. And it's a timetable that has all the classes that he's going to teach, his hours basically for his new job. He's a secondary school teacher. And I was going through it with him, and he was basically explaining what his work week is like. And he's off fucking 3/4 of the fucking week, basically. On Wednesday, he has one class. And he was bemoaning the fact that it was, at 2 o'clock and not at 9 o'clock, because at least then he could go in, do his class, and have the day off. Or better yet, he was sick that one class that he has on a Wednesday wasn't on a Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, or Friday, because if it was, he'd have every Wednesday off. And they finish on a half day on a Friday because, you just do, apparently every school gets a half day. I don't fucking know. But he was saying that it was class because he's only back from Doha over in the Middle East. And when he was teaching over there, you had to be in the school. I don't know what their hours were, fucking 8 to 3 or 9 to 5 or whatever it is. And regardless of whether or not he had a class to teach, he had to be in the school. So he worked, he was in work. Whether or not he was working was another story, but he was in work, call it 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. But with this new job, he has his classes that he teaches every week, but he doesn't need to be in the school for the whole day. If he only has one class, he's only in for that class. Now, there's a bit of a bollock in his timetable because one of the days, he has a class at 9 o'clock in the morning and then he doesn't have anything till 2 o'clock in the day. And that's a bit of a bollock. You go in, he has a bit of a commute, so you commute there, and I'm sure he has extracurricular stuff that he could and should be doing in between those classes. But I'd imagine it'd be cooler if you could just go in, do your classes and get out of there. Do your extracurricular stuff at home, the comfort of your own office or whatever. But he wasn't doing too much giving out about it now. He can see, because he was in the Middle East for 8 years, he can see the downside of having to be in work. So not having to be in work, even though he doesn't have the world's perfect timetable, it's still fucking class. But what he was bemoaning was other teachers. And I would bemoan them as well. Because I've often heard teachers ad nauseum pissing and fucking moaning that our summer holidays, which are usually 3 months and 2 days, is only 3 months and 1 day. I'll never get that day back. Cry me a fucking river. You work 8 to 9 twice a week and have 6 months holidays twice a year. Cop the fuck onto yourself. But it's the whole eating bread is soon forgotten thing. And I've had a touch of that more recently when I was bemoaning not being enthusiastic enough about my own business and feeling a little bit sorry for myself. And what I needed was the hand of gratitude to fucking slap me upside the fucking head and tell me to cop the fuck onto myself. Now, easier said than done. You have to be in the right frame of mind to get any benefit from being slapped upside the head by the big giant hand of gratitude. But we do have a tendency, I think, as humans, to just become complacent. And a common theme that's found amongst, hyper successful people, the most successful people in the world, whether it be in business or in sports or politics or whatever, what drives an awful lot of hyper successful people is crippling insecurities. It's a fear of not being good enough. That's what fucking fuels them. And I certainly have a touch of that. I have not an intense chronic feeling of being insufficient, but certainly erring on the side of caution. If I have a choice of not doing a big pile of work and just kicking back, I'll certainly do the big pile of work and then kick back, because I find it the only time that I can relax properly is when I've absolutely burst me bollocks at something, or when I've had a major fucking bit of success with something. Like I've been working on this thing, making no progress, and then all of a sudden it's fucking done. And it's like, all that hard work was so fucking worth it. I'm after bursting me bollocks, I'm after getting up early and staying home, or getting up early, staying up late, going the extra mile, you know, training when I didn't want to train, going to work when I didn't want to go to work, or didn't have to go to work, and all the rest of it. But on the other side of all that fucking grafting, when the chips do come in, that's when I can relax. That's when I can let the fucking shoulders drop, and I go, do you know what? Fucking, that was a good day, or a good week, or a good month, or a good whatever. And it's only until I have achieved something that I can grant myself 5 seconds of fucking calm, basically. And when you're not enthusiastic about whatever it is that you're doing, and your enthusiasm is kind of waning, it's a hell of a lot harder to go the extra mile. And when you don't go the extra mile, I find I can't relax as much. If I don't get any downtime, that lack of relaxation and that lack of downtime, the release that you get from that, you don't get that release. So the pressure builds, and the pressure builds, and the pressure builds, but you're not that enthusiastic about fucking doing anything about it, so you don't do anything about it, and then you feel guilty for not doing anything about it, and then you can't relax properly, and then you turn to fucking drugs, which is what I do. My go-to will be cannabis and alcohol. If I can't relax kind of naturally, for whatever reason, if I'm fucking antsy or agitated or fucking whatever, just kind of pissed off, which I will be if I don't put in a solid day's work, to get away from that fucking anxious fucking feeling of being less than, or feeling like a bit of a fucking loser, or a bit of a waste, or feeling the guilt of not having burst me bollocks that day, it's very easy to reach for the bottle or reach for the bong, and, you know, a couple of swigs or a couple of inhales, and it's like, I can relax. But that relaxation is undeserved, and there's a counter, I think, in your head of sorts, or I think it's good at least to conceptualize there being a counter in your head. That is in the background, counting the amount of work you do, and then when that gets to a certain number, it allows you to relax. But if that number isn't rising because you're being a lazy fuck and you're getting your relaxation through fucking drugs and alcohol, it's pseudo relaxation. It's like a good night's sleep. So I used to think that a hit of the bong before I went to bed would help me sleep, but it doesn't. It sedates me, and that's not the same thing. It'll help me get to sleep, but my sleep quality suffers. I've been tracking my sleep for the last good while now with this watch, and I've noticed that my deep sleep continuity in particular, and the amount of REM sleep that I get, are affected if I have a hit of the bong the evening before I go to bed. And there's something similar to that in relation to feeling relaxed. It's hitting the bong or getting a drink, or pick your poison, whatever it is. If you're leaning on something, if you're leaning on some sort of drug in particular, I suppose, alcohol and cannabis being my two drugs of choice, if you're relying on them to relax, you're not really, it might feel in the moment like you are relaxed, and I'm sure you are, I know you are, but it's a pseudo relaxation. Real relaxation, I find, comes from being comfortable in your own skin because you've done the work. There's an element of having earned it. What's coming to mind now is a conversation that I had with past guest and friend of the show, Pat O'Reilly. We were talking about work ethic. And Pat is a grafter, and I'm a grafter. And the great thing about being a grafter is, when you get your wages on a Friday, you go, happy days, got my wages. And there's no element of, oh, I didn't really fucking earn this. Now, it takes probably an especially conscientious person for that fucking thought to even enter their head, because I've had people who aren't that conscientious working in my business, and they are absolute lazy bastards. These people were absolute lazy bastards. And I doubt the thought ever crossed their fucking poxy little lazy ass minds that they didn't deserve the fucking wages that I paid them at the end of the week. It just wouldn't have been on their radar in the least. Whereas someone like Pader and me would do 10% less work one week, which is still fucking 80% more than your average person, or what might be expected. And we get a bit of a fucking chill of guilt when we fucking draw down our wages, because we didn't feel like we really earned them. And there's an element of that. You get to own the feeling of relaxation you get having worked your bollocks off. So over the last couple of weeks, I wasn't really feeling it work-wise. I was essentially doing the bare minimum on certain days, and that was making me feel fucking guilty. And the reason that I wasn't putting in the usual graft that I do was because I wasn't myself. But I wasn't myself, and then I didn't work hard, so I felt guilty. So now I wasn't myself and I felt guilty. And then that went on for a couple of days, and it kind of compounded itself. And I don't really know what snapped it out of me. Talking to Fionn, I think, my son, talking to him about... He was worrying about school, and he explained to me that he knows he's all up in his head. He knows that everything will be fine. And he knows that he's done this a million times before. He knows all this. But he's still beating himself up about it. So knowing you shouldn't be doing what you're doing doesn't stop you from doing what you're doing. And what I explained to him, or tried to explain to him, was his ability to think really hard about something was like a superpower. But it was akin, he was using it poorly. He was using his superpower to beat himself up. So he was using his superpower, which is deep thinking, in relation to worrying about what was going to potentially go wrong when he started back in school. But if he used that superpower to think of all the potentially brilliant things that might happen when he went back to school, that would be a better use of his superpower. And I was suffering from the same thing. I was overthinking everything, as I am prone to do, which is great if you're putting a positive spin on it, but I wasn't. And it was getting me down, and my work was suffering from it. I wasn't putting in the hours or the effort. That was making me feel guilty. I wasn't able to rest properly. I did turn to the fucking bong. I'd been off the bong for a couple of months at this stage, and I'm back in the habit of it. Again, because of the lack of fulfillment I was getting from my job. I felt I quote unquote needed it. And all it seems to have taken was a little bit of reframing. And a bit of fucking gratitude. And that's what I wanted to talk about originally. Aidan, my brother, he's grateful that he doesn't have to be in 9 to 4 or whatever the hours are. Now, he did slightly bemoan that it's not ideal, but we're all allowed fucking wish things were better than they are. But what really sank home was when he started mentioning how it sickens and hearing teachers give out. And I know a lot of teachers, and I hear them give out endlessly about their jobs. They have the best job in the fucking world. They're off twice fucking 6 months a year. For 6 months, they're off for 6 months a year, twice every year, should I say. They barely work, the fuckers. And they're constantly bemoaning, not getting paid enough, having to do this, having to do that. Fucking stick your head in the real world for 5 minutes and see what it's like. You wouldn't be long regretting all the complaining that you did about your job if you didn't fucking have it anymore. And I needed that reminder. Like, I was pissing and moaning about how, the business wasn't this, and I wasn't getting this out of it, and I still had to do this and that, and it was, problems here, problems there. But like, talk about first world fucking problems. Like, I have been and am and will continue to live a fucking life of luxury. But it doesn't matter. Your entire life, your entire existence can be soaked in gold But if you fucking don't have it together up there, it's not worth a flying shite to you. Like, there are literally billionaires out there who have killed themselves. There are people out there with more money and power and land and fame and everything that you could ever wish for or imagine. Friends, children, family, you know, everything. And, you know, they get in a bit of a rut. They get in a bit of more of a rut. They can't see the wood from the trees. All they can see is the bad in their life. You know, someone they know, you know, sprinkle that with someone they know getting fucking sick, or there being a car accident, or a tragedy, or a fucking school shooting, or whatever the fuck it is, and they blow their fucking brains out over it. When their life is objectively infinitely better than 99% of people on the planet. Objectively. Subjectively now is a different thing. And that's something that I have to be more consciously aware of, is maintaining my subjective feelings. Keeping an eye on them, basically. As the business fucking saying goes, what gets measured gets measured gets managed. There's something to that, like. I remember thinking before that a good idea would be it was an idea I had for an app at one point. And it was an app that would prompt you 2 or 3 times throughout the day randomly. So you get a notification on your phone, you take your phone out of your pocket, and it would have, you could select 1 to 10. 5 being, yeah, grand, not up, not down. 10 being, you know, best day of your life. 1 being worst day of your life. And whenever this thing went off, you just had to kind of gauge your mood in that exact moment and go, I give it a 6, I give it a 5, I give it a 3, I give it a 2, I give it a 1, whatever. And the idea being that you would get a report at the end of, let's say, the week or the month. And maybe you didn't get a report. Maybe you just get a notification to say, dude, you've hit a score of, I don't know, 10 in the last fucking 10 days. You know, this is red flag territory. You need to fucking do something drastic. And there'd be no point in starting something like this in the depths of despair, because it just reminds you. You get a notification, like, so you're practically suicidal. You download this app and you start using it, and a week into it, it goes, be careful, you're practically suicidal. It's like, I fucking know, that's why I downloaded the content app. But what I'm talking about, that would be a bad example of a use of the app. That's when things are acute. My problems aren't acute now at the minute. So, yeah, yesterday was just the fucking best day ever. And a big part of that was I banged up 5 podcasts on top of doing the delivery, so I was compounding my productivity. And if nothing else, I did that. And when I can just chalk more up on the board, I feel better in myself. And it doesn't necessarily have to be, you know, I got a new customer in work, or I did this new big thing. Like, for all intents and purposes, there's absolutely no difference in me having uploaded those 5 podcasts. Like, you know, I had 400 episodes online, now I have 405. It doesn't make any difference. But it made a difference to my own fucking head. It gave me a feeling of accomplishment. It made me feel like I had achieved something, that my fucking life was worthwhile. Now that's a slippery slope too. You know, that's, I think, as a podcaster, I'm a big fan of Blind by Boat Club. The way he frames this is in relation to an internal versus an external locus of evaluation. So my self-worth shouldn't be defined by how productive I was today. That would be an external locus of evaluation. You're looking at something outside of yourself to validate yourself. Ideally, that sense of self should come from within. You should just feel fucking good enough. Now, that's something that I have to work on, because I don't. if I don't put in hard work and effort and graft and I'm striving towards an honourable goal of sorts, I suffer for that. I need that. Now maybe that's something I have to grow out of. Who knows? But it's certainly better. The thoughts that I'm having now are certainly better than the thoughts I've been having for the last couple of weeks, which is, in hindsight, a hell of a lot of fucking rumination of negative thoughts. Oh, you didn't do this and you didn't do that and you should have done this and you could have done that, but you fucking didn't because you're a fucking loser. Like that kind of loop inside your head can fucking get you down something serious. And when you're down something serious, you're not great crack with your kids and they pick up on that. You're not great crack with your wife and she picks up on it and suitably punishes you for it. And then you don't feel like meeting up with the lads or doing the thing with the guy because you're in piss bad form. And then, 6 months go by and you haven't gone anywhere or done anything and your training has suffered and you fucking spiral downwards. At least that's what happens to me if I don't fucking look after myself. But the time, I suppose, the most important time to look after yourself is, I hope this doesn't sound fucking contrived, but it's kind of always. You should always be looking after yourself a tiny little bit, as opposed to really looking after yourself when you're down, because when you're down, you won't have the energy to really look after yourself. And when you're up and everything's fucking flying, I suppose you should just take some time to appreciate how good you have it and practice some fucking gratitude and maybe reflect on the times when things weren't as good as they are now and be just fucking grateful. And that's what I'm going to strive to do now over the next day. I won't say the next couple of weeks because that's just shy talk, but even today, if I can just concentrate on what I have to be grateful for and fucking take from there. And on that note, I'll chat to you soon.